Joanne Wilson, and this is Positively Gotham Gal. Real, honest, and meaningful conversations with women entrepreneurs about their approach to life, business, and everything in between. I'm so happy to meet you. So we're just going to talk about you and about Gjelina and all the stuff in between.
Thank you. It's lovely to meet you too, Joanne.
Yeah. So you are a transplanted South African.
I am. Thank you. A lot of people are like, "Oh, you're a Brit," but I'm not. I'm born and bred South African. 23, moved to London. 38, moved to LA. I'm 50 next month. So I've done sort of 23 years, 13 years.
Right. And do you still have family back in South Africa?
I do. Mostly cousins. My parents both live in the UK now.
Mm-hmm. Ah, very nice. So you went to the University of Westminster and studied homeopathy.
Yeah, I did.
And where did you do with that you sort of moved into hospitality?
So I first did a degree. We were still under apartheid, and I was quite adamant that I was going to try, in my naivety, to join the trade unions. And so off I went to study economics and psychology. And it didn't go as planned, but I served tables at night to pay for it. I had to pay for my own education. And around the time I left Rhodes University, inappropriately named Rhodes University, I was serving tables to pay off my student debt in Cape Town, and apartheid was abolished. And we had this massive influx of tourists, primarily American tourists, who came in, and all of a sudden we were exposed to the world of very generous tipping. And so I was making my rent in a night. I made a flight to the UK in a week and ended up in the UK and served tables traveling around the world. Decided I needed to get a little more serious and started studying homeopathy. And again, just right at the end of my degree, it's just hospitality's always just been something that I've been intrinsically drawn to, and never fell into the world of actually practicing full time.
Yeah, well, all the dots always connect. It's always worth something. So hospitality, you ended up working for Terence Conran. So was this when he had his restaurants, or was this when he had his store?
Both. I didn't work in the store. My long-term boyfriend, who then became my husband and the father of my children, all sort of in that order, children then husband, he and I were quite major fans of the Conran store and used to use our breaks walking around. And so the whole concept of product,
I was too.
The whole concept of like product design and design as it appeared in a restaurant and in the co-creation of a hospitality space that wasn't the sort of copy and paste, I'm going to order 400 chairs off Webstront, which is the main sort of restaurant commercial website, but actually something that had been thought out.
I bought things there.
Yeah, we do too, but mostly cutting board. But this idea that somebody could actually intentionally create a specific shaped booth or a chair or an ashtray, everything had a place and everything had a reason. And I think it was such a great foundation for me to ask, like, what is the why? Why is a table situated like that? Because people can see each other better, because there's a better interaction with the kitchen, because there's glamour or coming down the staircase. And so I think he was ahead of his time in really.
He was definitely ahead of his time.
Just bringing everything was so well thought through. Even just the way flowers were situated on the main bar at Mezzo, like everything had a reason, and it sort of created an internal pause for me to stop and start to see how everything played into. Then you layer in the personalities of the humans who frequented, or the staff members, and it becomes a little bit like an orchestra or play. But that was the sort of a really great, solid intro. And then very privileged to move into the River Cafe after that, where, I mean, God,
I mean, the River Cafe. I mean, like, yeah, amazing.
It's, yeah, and just
And there's three girls in New York, three women in New York who came out of the River Cafe and opened a fantastic restaurant that I had a podcast on here called
yeah,
King. And one of them, Claire, is actually opening a place now upstate, and it's wonderful. It's just a little gem, and there's no doubt they took that sort of why and simplistic but delicious and very focused thought process to their restaurant.
they were the best. You know, if Terence was this sort of the master of creating this environment where everything was so well thought out, Rose Ruth, and of course you have to layer in Lord Richard too, who has very sadly passed recently, but just the way that they created the space that the River Cafe uh, existed in, and the color of the blue carpet and the color of the wall, and the color of the tulips that used to come in, everything was so specific, but to your point, very simplistic. Not simple, but just all the lines lined up, and Richard was an absolute genius in that, like, everything. And I think that was the first point where I started saying, oh, like, a shelf needs to follow a particular line that hooks to something else. It can't. He was just incredible, and having the privilege then of working with Rose and Ruth, who, to your point, and Claire will, have no doubt, reiterate this, the real intention with why each ingredient appeared on the plate, and because first and foremost it was what was available, and then beyond that,
Yes.
the complete participation of every single human, whether you were in the office upstairs or whether you were working on the floor, you all participated in the preparation of that dish before service opened. And it was the first time that I'd seen the sort of eradication of this back of house, front of house mentality, where, very old school. When I started out, chefs all accused the servers of being lazy, and the servers all accused the chefs of being too, like, outspoken.
Big attitudes, absolutely. I mean, I've always been drawn to hospitality, so I've never owned a restaurant, but I worked in retail, and so there is something about the excitement when you walk into a restaurant or a store that is inspiring, and you take in every detail, and you want to walk out with a piece of something there. And unfortunately, I think retail has not been able to do that. But the truth is, Colette was like that for
Oh,
years, and then it got a little out of
absolutely.
control.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I was privileged enough to spend time with her before the store shut. We got into a dialogue about a potential pop-up there, so it was really lovely to be able to go to Paris and have a conversation with her, because we happened to be doing a pop-up at Merci at the time. But you're right, Colette was really
Colette was special. I mean, Merci is cool too, but it's not geared to it doesn't cast as wide of a net.
And there's a little bit, I found Colette, you found you were taking home a little bit of the personal about Colette, as opposed to another brand that was existing within a space.
Correct. I mean, I know the pieces I got there. I know that the first time I actually saw a line there that I so loved, which was Byredo.
Right.
No one else was carrying it. I came home with 3 things of cream in my
Yeah.
my bag, and then 3 years later, it was like, oh my God, boom, it exploded. And so, I felt, they really saw things before they happened. It is a connectivity. They were brilliant. And I actually think what's the most brilliant is they closed at the high.
Yeah. Yeah, they did.
I give them a lot of credit, and, their mark has been made, and it will always remain such. So you ended up then, did Soho House call you? Was this the beginnings of Soho House?
It was right at the beginning, and it was so fun. Nick Jones, who was the founder of Soho House, he used to come to the River Cafe every Sunday with his family. And I would look after him because it was such a familial environment. People came, you'll listen to, if you
Yes.
listen to Ruthie's podcast right now, there are people that come in and they sit at the same table for the past 30 years. And
Yeah.
Nick was one of those. And, having the opportunity to look after him, as I say this to my team members all the time, there are so many opportunities right in front of you. If there are 300 people who are coming in, I'm not saying be an opportunist, but you never know where a conversation is going to lead you. I would never, ever have put a dollar on a thought process that somehow he had connected the dots and that he would call. There was nothing in my exchange, interactions, communication that even indicated that that was a thought process of his. And yeah, and I said no at the beginning, because there was, the greatest thing about the early days of Soho House, when you're thinking like 95, 96, 97, 98, was it was a massive, there was very little delineation between member and staff member, right? There was a lot of interpersonal activity. And
Yes.
I'd just come to the point where I just graduated my degree. Rose and Ruth had asked me to become a manager of the River Cafe. I decided to follow suit, and I was deciding, to just invest a little bit more of the seriousness in terms of learning. And I wanted to learn more about the business aspect and more about really behind the scenes operations. And that was something that was not readily available at the River Cafe because it was family owned, family run, and they had everything in place, right? But here was this incredible company, and Nick was like, look, we're gonna roll out weekly profit and losses. We'll teach you everything that you need to know about the business, which was such a perfect and right move for him because he was starting to expand. And so all of these GMs were given, and I say all, there were three of us then, were given this opportunity to participate in the earliest days of like, what should your food costs, like where are your food costs landing, where are your beverage costs landing, what do wage costs look like? And that whole numbers part of the business that I've been slightly removed. I've been fully engaged in feel, heart, humanity, ingredients. I layered on that, and the world opened up for me in terms of the way I saw hospitality and the opportunity. Oh, it was so that was.
That's amazing. My favorite Soho House is when we go to Berlin, we always stay at the Soho House. And the store there
Yeah,
is actually
that's Alex Eagle now, is.
an incredible mixture.
Yeah,
It might be. I don't know. I haven't been in a couple years.
I'm pretty sure it's Alex Eagle who took over the running. Oh, you know what? I don't know. It's been a while. I'm pretty sure she was the last person curating it, and she's also got a great eye. But it's a great space, that store.
It's an amazing space, and it really captures. You could take, you always have to look at history, right? You could look at Conran's, you could look at the River Cafe, you could look at all of that, including Colette, all sort of rolled up into this incredible space. That's just, you could sit there all day and eat and shop, and it's an amazing experience. It's just an amazing, amazing store. So you're now in LA with your family.
I am.
You're involved in Soho House, and what was the jump to Gjelina?
Jump from a massive company to a little baby in comparison. Um, I think I mean I know that there was a vast number of hours that was being spent within the building up of Soho House, West Hollywood, and Chiconi's, and I was starting to feel what I think a lot of parents go through, which is my children are being raised by somebody else. We were incredibly lucky that for the first 12 years we had we call her an additional co-parent in the form of Sarah, who was, brought on when Joe was 6 months old. He's 17 now. Brought on when he was 6 months old as his nanny. She then became part of the family and is now one of his close. She's a good big sister to him. She left when he was 12, but she moved back to the UK. But to have that continuum of love and care. But there came a point where I just wanted more time with my kids. I wanted to be able to step into mothering without feeling like I was going to lose my place, right? Like,
I understand that. Like you want to be present in their lives.
yeah,
And it is when they're younger, it's not that it's not important, but as they become older, in many ways, that it becomes more important. And if you don't do it, you're never going to get it back.
exactly. And just as their opinions are starting to become more formulated and you hear them speak, I just knew that if there was a way to allow for more time with them while doing what I loved, and maybe taking all the elements of what Soho House had taught me and actually creating that little mini world of experimentation and play myself without sort of major corporate backing, right? There was no major backing to it. So we did it very sort of hot glue gun, duct tape, and somebody's old chewing gum from underneath the table. It feels like a little bit at times, but it's very real. What's being created, but it did allow me the fortitude of more time with my kids, and so I got to do what I love.
Which is
Yeah,
wonderful.
and have more time with them.
Well, Well, I know there's been a lot of drama, Gjelina, of like people leaving, like, and then others, coming back and forth, and that were the original founders. But what I think is fantastic is that I'm a big believer in companies that take time to think and breathe and then say, okay, we're ready for step two.
Right,
And when I got to Venice this year, Gjelina, no, well, and then you open Gjelina Takeaway.
right.
And the minute you open that and then move to the Juice to Bakery, it was like all you had to do was open the door.
Yeah, and it was so funny because we didn't,
I mean, it's
well, with
amazing.
Gjelina and Gjelina Takeaway, they existed pre me, and they did such an extraordinary job in creating this food haven that people just wanted to come to. And part of my sort of coming on board was like, well, how am I going to even be able to be an asset in this space when what they do is so great, but we were also on the precipice of growth with other properties, and so to be able to really dive down into anything from what does the marble feel like to what is a plate that somebody's going to eat off to. It was a really wonderful world, but we really opened quite naively, sort of baking 70 loaves of bread a day, and we had three things on the menu when we opened, and we didn't tell anybody we'd opened. We just sort of opened the door, and then all of a sudden, our first Saturday, my business partner Fran, who's the founder, Gjelina's son, looked at me and said, "Should I just shut the doors? I mean, we don't know how to." And it was terrifyingly beautiful. And I think that one of the greatest gifts that I've ever had in hospitality is that Justa has learned. Justa has grown. We've grown up with Justa, but Justa has grown year by year, where we've layered in, layered in, layered in, and there wasn't a big top-down plan. It was entirely grassroots. We were like, okay, great, we're going to make pizza dough and bread for our other operations, and we'll make a couple of sandwiches, and we'll smoke some fish, and we'll see what the. And I've never been involved in something that's been of. It's like she's like a giant. I mean, Justa is actually a real human being, but Justa the bakery feels like a giant octopus for me. That there's a tentacle involved in a different part of hospitality, where one of our sweet employees, Kenny, wanted to, he talked to us because he wants to go to culinary school. And you're like, culinary school is 40, 60, in some cases, $80,000 a year. We've got a culinary school. Like you can earn, we
A
can,
hundred
we can
percent.
teach you everything you need to know right here. Please don't pay. And it's also now become an impetus to layer into our Gjelina Foundation, which is creating educational programs and more of a school that we want people to be able. I got into debt twice. Our industry, you don't need to. You should be allowed to learn everything and earn and be able to support and more yourself and others through our industry. There's really no reason, in my mind, for our industry to
I
be able to operate.
completely agree. So I know because my brother's kids went to school with the kid that started Giant Isaac Bread.
Yeah,
And
he was one of our bakers.
he was one of your bakers. And the story from that I heard, of course this is third hand, is that he was baking in his home and he took this over to the bakery, and the head baker's like, this is amazing, you should come work here.
Yeah,
And he always said, like, I don't want to, what's the point of going to culinary school?
yeah,
What is the point of doing these things? This is what I'm passionate about, right?
yeah.
And so he learned, and now he has his own bakery and he's opening another
It's
bakery. So it's
fantastic.
amazing. And it's this long tail of the impact that, Gjelina has essentially made. And, on the West Side, I mean, anyone that comes to LA on the West Side is like, can we eat at Gjelina, right? Or can we go, to Justa and check it out? So it's almost iconic on this side of Los Angeles, which is kind of amazing. So when I got here, because we come out here every Christmas, around December, we stay through early end of March, really. And we were walking, and all of a sudden, I see the grocer. And literally, I think you guys had opened the day before. And I walk in, I was like, oh my God, this is genius.
Oh, I love that you've had that
And then
experience. I've been so insecure.
it's so great. It's so well
Thank
curated.
you.
It's so smart. The products are amazing. You guys closed and reopened very quickly to figure out, how it had to be laid out
Yeah.
differently. And it's lovely. And then down the little alley, there's this beautiful flower store. And, it's like this little diamond in the rough. I mean, Venice is funky, and you're right there on the waterfront, basically. And like, I walked in and I just stood outside and I took a picture of that flower
Oh,
store.
thank you.
And it's like, I'm going to buy my flowers here because I want to support stores like this in our neighborhood.
Thank you. It's been such a sweetness, but a space of insecurity because again, we don't come in with some grand plan. We come in with, to our fault sometimes. We come in with all heart, and all value and principle driven, and then we cross our fingers a little bit. And I'm kind of happy that Omicron hit when it did, because it gave us an opportunity to be like, look, we don't have enough crew right now, we have to stop. Let's actually think about the lay of the land. Let's actually layer in more product and build some more shelves for the wine. And it just feels so sweet. But we've never been grocer owners before. We're in hospitality, and we truly believe in our sourcing. Like, we're very committed to our farmers, and whatever in whatever way we can support them as grocers.
I love that. I mean, yeah, extremely connected to California and the farmers, which is so California and so lovely. But the reality is that, yeah, you might not have done it before, but there's something very organic about it that makes it so authentic. And you feel, at least I do, that as I walk through there, that I'm part of this experience as you're trying to figure out what's the best way to
Yeah,
do this for everyone around us, because that's hospitality.
right. Thank you. And but I do think, just to really give kudos where kudos is absolutely due. Nina, who really came in with a very strong brief on sourcing, right? So I said I want 100% accountability for any product that we carry, and follow the brief of ethnicity, gender. We Everything has to be considered, and we can be 100% accountable at grocer and 100% accountable at Juice to Goods, and we have now data for our other properties too. And Nina, the general manager, has done such an extraordinary job in the curation of that. And as time allows and we're able to build out our production kitchen, which is our next wave, our own internal branded product line will increase, which I'm really excited to see. It's like lots of little babies coming to life. It's like, what's our granola bar going to be like? What's the next? We've got an entire cookbook in Gjelina, and none of those products are articulated. Maybe four are articulated in bottles right now. There's an entire line. Valle, that has its own line. But between Sam Rogers, who does our sourcing from direct farmers, and Nina, who is really layering in these extraordinary third-party humans, I mean, the two of them, we're very, very lucky that they have chosen to be with us.
No, it's great. And then on top of that, you've layered in this foundation.
The foundation started. It's got really early roots, a little bit sweetly disorganized right at the beginning, which was Fran again, my business partner, saw this gap in the local public schools where the teachers needed support, and so he would go in and offer to support with reading in classrooms. And then we were like, wait, we should actually be doing something in the classroom that really ties into farmer education and food, because that's what we know about. And the Gjelina volunteer program was born, and it primarily consisted of employees from Gjelina and GTA, and a few community members. And then as we grew, we decided to actually like test a full year academic program, after school farming and cooking. We met every Thursday after school, and by the end of the year, the school had actually agreed to take the program in school as part of their curriculum, and they would fund.
That's fantastic.
Which was just, and that's now the goal, is to be able to roll that out K through 12 as a continuum learning. But by the time you get into 10, 11, 12, it becomes a lot more business, HR, a California labor law focused, so that you should, I mean, my dream is 12th grade, you present us with a business plan, having interned with whomever blows your hair back in the hospitality world, but really being able to present a business plan and knowing where your challenge points are and knowing where your strengths are. And again, step out, support, and whether that's here or in Oaxaca, both should be feeder schools to support people stepping into great jobs, because we see too often lower paid positions when people's skill sets should be celebrated a little bit more, or a lot.
I completely agree on that. But I like about the curriculum is, in many ways, it sounds like your curriculum for yourself, right? That you learned all the creativity, and then the last couple of years is when then you took the dive into all the finances and really had a different outlook on a business as a whole, complete whole, which is great.
Yeah, thank you. It is true. I hadn't actually thought about it that way.
But it makes sense, because at one point, unless you're just like a numbers person from day one, the creativity that then moves into the other one, because I think that there's few people that can see both sides of that fence, right? And that is that's a gift. So can we talk a little bit about like where you're going next? Like I was at Gisalo the other day. And is that connected to Justa or not?
No, and it's
No,
funny,
nothing to
you're
do.
the second person to mention that to me. It's not connected, but next for us
Okay.
in the pipeline, we have Gjelina, New York opening, 45 Bond Street.
And where is that opening? 45 Bond. Oh, perfect. Perfect location.
So exciting. We share a wall with Donna at Il Buco, who has been nothing but a champion of us coming in.
I'm sure. She's lovely.
Yeah, she's really great. So that's that. And then we're looking at another property in New York for a Justa, which was great, because it makes no sense just to do one without the other if we're going to have team there. And then we have a 25-bedroom hotel opening in Venice, which is really.
And where is that?
It's Rosen Speedway.
Okay. Well, there is definitely a need for that here.
Oh, absolutely. And the beautiful thing is that we have F&B dialed in. So if you're able to go to Justa for breakfast, put it on your room tab. Go to Gjelina for dinner, put it on your room tab. The hotel itself isn't permitted for food and beverage. And so for us, it was a slam dunk. We have the food and beverage. You want your picnic delivered from grocer to your room because you're going off to the beach. Vaille's opening 3 streets north of that. There's a lot of opportunity for people to have food experiences within our operations and other people's restaurants, in a very short walk from Rosen Speedway. So it's a great location for us.
And as someone who has been coming to Venice for, my God, along decades. I mean, I spent 6 months in college living here, and then I was born here. So, but I left when I was young. But um, it is very, and even in the last, I'd say 20 years, where we came here very, very consistently because my brother moved out here with his family. It's really interesting to see how Venice is changing.
Right.
And I'm curious, like, what are your thoughts about where Venice is going? I mean, we're seeing better restaurants, interesting, curated stores, and it's like, from your area in terms of the grocery and the flower store, or the Great White, it's like really nice to see. We're going to have the that huge club that's going to be over there. So
Neuha.
all these things are such great. Yeah, the Neue House is such a great addition to
Right.
Venice.
I think, well, there's sort of two things. I think what I've seen in terms of the change is we obviously saw, pre 2008, a rapid increase in gentrification and houses being sort of brought down to studs and being built up again. But what we weren't seeing was a correlation in the 5 local public schools with people actually sending their kids there. So there was this sort of like disconnect between, oh yeah, I believe in the area because it's cool and because it's got a whatever was happening on the street, a Gjelina or whatever was happening on the street. I'm not trying to blow my own trumpet. I'm just trying to think of something else. Um, and
No, but it's
it's
true.
cool, but we're not actually going to put our money where our mouth is. And then these 3 extraordinary parents started this campaign to, I mean, I stand corrected, but I think it was like almost 25% local, 75% bussed in at one point. And
Hmm.
they really started this campaign to get more parents to actually look at what was right in front of them. And Juice to Bakery and Gjelina, we would provide baked goods for their sort of parent tours. And in very short space in time, I would say it was like 5 to 6 years, the local elementary school became 100% local, and it's now fed into the middle school, and now it's feeding into the high.
Yeah, and the high school. Yeah, Venice High School is great. And that's what it needs to be. I mean, we have the same thing in New York City. It's like, if you're going to live downtown, send your kids to school
Right,
downtown.
right, and that's, I think that's been the most sort of heartwarming change to see, is that people are actually not just choosing to eat at Gjelina on a date night or GTA for their egg sandwich once. So people locals, I think, but with their kids being local and them being in, there feels just a little bit more connection. We've definitely gone through a little bit of a spurt of non-independent stores opening up, which feels like a
Hmm.
diversion, but I actually think it's going to flip back the other way. This kind of like,
Oh, I think it's going to totally flip back the other way. People aren't walking into them. They're going to eventually walk away. And particularly in the post-COVID world, where I think the communities can be more important than ever.
yeah, I feel really keenly that that's going to be the next move for our, which the more the merrier of the
Totally.
business.
I mean, yeah, and as well, as you have a new journal, which I'm really enjoying and reading when it comes into my box. But I will say that I got up early and I went over to Justa to pick up something, and there were like, it was so cute because there were 4 men in line with their kids, early in the morning. That they were locals. That's where they were going with their kids for their early morning muffin and a
Mom's
coffee.
getting a
And I just thought it was so great. Yeah, mom's getting into sleep. It's Saturday morning, and it was awesome. And so I think the impact you guys have made on the community is
thank you.
tremendous. Well, I think a lot of people have decided to come here who have said, I'm leaving New York, or I'm leaving whatever, and I'm going to live in Venice.
Right. Yeah. And I'm happy to provide,
Which is fine,
happy,
which is great.
happy to feed people.
I'm sure you are. So I have one last question for you. What's your favorite cookbook of the moment?
Oh, um, I think there is a series of cookbooks. I love cooking Indian food when I'm at home. I love cooking any food that's of an origin that's outside of the UK or the US. Just give me something else. So whether it's Iranian Persian cooking or whether it's Indian cooking, I'm on an Indian cooking trip at the moment, but there's a chef, an Indian chef primarily based in Britain called Mira Soda, Sodha. And I think she makes it so colorful, interesting, and accessible. And you know, because we're stupidly privileged and have access to great food every single day in the restaurants, just to be able to offer something else at the dinner table that's not that. And I think Mira Soda does a really great job of that.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for being on. I'm a huge fan of anything Gjelina and Justa, and I will have to come over there and sit down and have a glass of wine with you and a pizza.
Please. And thank you so much for having me. I'm very grateful for your time.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.